Captain Day sat in his small office at the Earth Defense Headquarters, staring at the blue hologram that floated above his desk. The message had arrived 3 hours ago, and he still could not believe what it said. The Galactic Coalition wanted humans to build a training academy. Not just any academy, but the most important military school in the entire galaxy. He read the message again, his dark eyes moving slowly across the glowing words. Ambassador Hana stood near the window, her arms crossed, watching the city below. She had been quiet since arriving, which worried him. Hana was never quiet. "They want us to train their warriors," Day said, though it was not really a question. "After 47 years of treating us like children, they suddenly think we can teach them how to fight." Hana turned from the window. Her face showed the same confusion he felt. "The council leader himself sent this message. Thrix does not make jokes, Day. If he is asking for our help, something very bad is happening out there." The hologram shifted and a new image appeared. It showed a destroyed planet, its surface burning with green fire. The cities were gone, the forests were gone. Everything was ash and smoke. Day felt his stomach twist. "The Devourers," Hana whispered. "They have destroyed 14 worlds in the past 2 years. Coalition forces keep losing. Their best warriors, their most advanced weapons, nothing stops these creatures." Day stood and walked to the window beside her. Earth looked peaceful from up here, green and blue and beautiful. It was hard to imagine that somewhere out in the black ocean of space, an enemy was destroying entire planets. "Why us? We are not the strongest species. We do not have the best technology. The Vryn are bigger. The Quillen are faster. What do we have that they need?" Hana pulled up another file on her tablet. "This is what changed their minds." She showed him graphs and charts filled with numbers. "The Coalition studied our history, all of it. Every war, every battle, every time humans faced extinction. They found something interesting in the data." "What did they find?" "We never stop fighting," Hana said simply. "Every other species in the galaxy, when they face certain death, they surrender or retreat. Their survival instincts tell them to give up and live another day. But humans? We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, ice ages, droughts, floods. We should have died out 1,000,000 years ago." Day looked at her, waiting. "But we did not die," she continued. "We got angry instead. We turned fear into rage. We learned to fight hardest when we were most wounded. The Coalition thinks this is what they need. Warriors who refuse to quit, even when quitting makes sense." A soft chime echoed through the office. Another message appeared. Day's face went pale as he read it. "The Vryn are protesting. They say humans are too weak to train anyone. They are demanding a trial by combat." Hana closed her eyes and sighed. "Of course they are. The Vryn never accept anything without violence first." The door to the office slid open, and Commander Yuna walked in. She was shorter than Day, but everyone in the military knew her reputation. She had survived 3 suicide missions and came back each time with more scars and fewer words. "I heard about the challenge," she said. "Who are they sending?" "Krath," Day replied. Yuna's expression did not change, but Day saw her hand tighten into a fist. Krath was famous across the galaxy. He had killed 47 opponents in ritual combat. He was 9 feet tall with natural armor covering his body. His strength could bend steel. "When?" Yuna asked. 3 days. Coalition Prime Station. It will be broadcast to every planet in the galaxy." "Good," Yuna said coldly. "Let them watch." Hana stepped between them. "Day, you do not have to do this. We can refuse. We can tell the Council that we will not participate in barbaric trials." Day shook his head. "If I refuse, humanity looks weak. If I refuse, they will never trust us to train their warriors. And if I refuse, the Devourers will keep destroying planets until they reach Earth." He looked at Yuna. I need your help. Yuna nodded once. I will prepare you. 3 days is not much time, but it will be enough. Over the next 72 hours, Day trained harder than he ever had in his life. Yuna taught him things he never learned in the academy. She showed him how to turn weakness into strength, how to use pain as fuel, how to make an opponent afraid even when they were bigger and stronger. Krath will expect you to fight like a human, Yuna explained as they sparred in the gym. He will expect technology, clever tactics, careful planning. You must give him something else. What? Day asked, breathing hard. Desperation, Yuna said. Show him what humans become when they have nothing left to lose. The day of the trial arrived. Day stood in the transport ship, looking out at Coalition Prime Station. It was massive, a city floating in space, home to millions of aliens from 23 different species. Somewhere inside that station, in an arena watched by billions across the galaxy, Krath was waiting. Hana touched his shoulder. You can still walk away. No, Day said quietly. I really cannot. The arena was exactly as brutal as he imagined. Circular, 500 feet across, with a dirt floor and metal walls that rose up to stadium seating. Every seat was filled. Aliens of all shapes and sizes watched in silence as Day entered from one side. Then Krath entered from the other side, and the crowd roared. He was bigger than Day expected. Bigger than seemed possible. His scales were dark green and thick as armor plates. His eyes were yellow and cold. He carried no weapons because he did not need any. His claws and teeth were weapons enough. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena in 12 different languages. This trial will determine if humanity deserves to lead the Coalition's Warrior Academy. Captain Day of Earth faces Krath, champion of the Vryn Empire. The trial ends when one fighter cannot continue or surrenders. Day stepped forward into the center of the arena. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. He thought about everything Yuna taught him. He thought about Earth, green and blue and peaceful. He thought about the destroyed planets he had seen in the hologram. Krath walked toward him, each step shaking the ground. The alien stopped 10 feet away and spoke in a voice like grinding stones. You are very small, human. This will not take long. Day looked up at the massive warrior and smiled. It was not a happy smile. That is what they all say. The bell rang, and the fight began. Krath moved faster than anything that large should move. His massive hand swung at Day like a hammer, and only years of training kept the human alive. Day ducked under the blow and rolled to the side, feeling the wind from Krath's fist against his face. The crowd cheered. They wanted blood. Day came up running, putting distance between himself and the Vryn champion. He needed to think. Krath was strong and fast, but he was also confident. Too confident. The alien warrior thought this would be easy. Running already? Krath called out, his voice mocking. I have fought children who lasted longer than this. Day did not respond. He was watching, learning. Krath favored his right side. His left leg moved slightly slower. An old injury, perhaps, or just the way his body was built. It did not matter. Every weakness could be used. Krath charged again, and this time Day did not run. He waited until the last second, then dropped low and slammed his fist into Krath's left knee. The alien barely noticed. His scales were too thick, but Day had expected that. The real attack came next. As Krath swung downward, Day grabbed the alien's arm and used the momentum to swing himself up and around, driving his elbow into the softer scales under Krath's jaw. The champion stumbled back, surprised. Blood ran down Day's arm where Krath's scales had cut him, but he ignored it. Pain was just information. Yuna had taught him that. First blood to the human! The announcer shouted, and the crowd went wild. Krath touched his jaw, saw his own green blood on his fingers, and something changed in his yellow eyes. The mockery was gone. Now there was only rage. What happened next was brutal. Krath stopped playing. He came at Day with everything, and the human could only defend. Each blocked hit sent shockwaves through Day's arms. Each dodge came closer to failing. The Vryn was too strong, too fast, too much. A massive fist caught Day in the ribs, and he heard something crack. He flew backward and hit the arena wall hard enough to dent the metal. The crowd fell silent. It looked like the fight was over. Day slid down the wall and landed on his knees, coughing blood. His vision swam. His ribs screamed with every breath. This was it. This was the moment where surrender made sense. But Day thought about the burning planets. He thought about the devourers coming closer to Earth. He thought about every human who had ever refused to quit when quitting was the smart choice. He stood up. The crowd gasped. Even Krath looked surprised. Day wiped the blood from his mouth and smiled again. That same not-happy smile. "My turn," he said quietly. Something changed in the arena. The aliens watching did not understand what they were seeing. Their warriors trained to fight efficiently, to preserve themselves, to retreat when wounded. But humans were different. Humans became more dangerous when they were hurt. Day came forward, and this time Krath hesitated. The human should be down. The human should be finished. But there he was. Moving like his broken ribs did not matter. Like pain was fuel instead of warning. They fought for another 10 minutes, and it was the longest 10 minutes of Day's life. Every movement hurt. Every breath was agony. But he had learned Krath's patterns now. He knew when the big alien would swing high, when he would sweep low, when he would try to grab. Day stopped fighting to win. He started fighting to survive. And in that survival, he found his advantage. He led Krath around the arena, making the big warrior chase him, making him use energy. Krath was strong, but he was not built for long fights. Day was. Humans were persistence hunters, evolved to run prey into exhaustion. The crowd watched in confusion as the humans simply refused to fall. Day took hits that should have ended him and kept moving. He bled from a dozen wounds and kept fighting. His face was swelling. His body was covered in bruises, but his eyes stayed focused. Finally, after 30 minutes of combat, Krath made a mistake. He overextended on a punch, putting too much weight forward. Day saw it instantly. He slipped inside the Vryn's guard and drove his fist into the same spot under Krath's jaw, then again, then again. 3 fast strikes to the same weak point. Krath's eyes rolled back, and the massive warrior crashed to the ground like a falling tree. The arena was completely silent. Day stood over his fallen opponent, breathing hard, barely able to stand himself. He waited for Krath to get up. He would fight more if he needed to. He would fight until he physically could not move. But Krath did not get up. The Vryn champion was unconscious. The announcer's voice cracked with disbelief. "Winner! Captain Day of Earth!" The crowd exploded into noise. Some cheered, some shouted in anger, some just stared in shock. In the special viewing box, Council Leader Thrix leaned forward, his insect-like eyes fixed on the small human standing in the arena. Day barely remembered leaving the arena. Medical staff surrounded him immediately, their scanners buzzing over his broken body. But through the pain and exhaustion, he felt something he had not expected. Pride. Later in the medical bay, Ambassador Hana sat beside his bed. "That was the stupidest, bravest thing I have ever seen," she said. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. "Did it work?" Day asked, his voice rough. "See for yourself." She turned on the wall screen. The broadcast showed aliens across the galaxy watching the fight. Experts were analyzing every moment. Scientists were studying human biology. Warriors were demanding to know how a smaller, weaker species could defeat their champion. One expert, a gray-skinned alien with too many arms, was explaining to the camera. What we witnessed today was not superior strength or technology. It was something we have never seen in coalition combat. The human refused to accept defeat. His body was broken, his chances were zero, but his mind never surrendered. This is what has been missing from our warriors. Another screen showed Dr. Ara, a human psychologist that Day knew from the academy. She was giving an interview to Galactic News. Humans evolved on a death world, Dr. Ara explained. For millions of years, everything on our planet tried to kill us. Predators, diseases, weather, other humans. We survived by being too stubborn to die. We learned to turn suffering into strength, fear into aggression. When a human is wounded, their body releases chemicals that make them fight harder, not run away. We call it the stress response, but really it is weaponized desperation. The screen changed to show Council Leader Thrix speaking to the assembled coalition leaders. The evidence is clear. Humanity possesses something we lack. They have 10,000 years of warfare encoded into their training. They know how to create warriors who cannot be broken because they come from a species that refuse to break. Thrix paused, his strange face unreadable. The Academy will open on Earth in 6 months. We will send 500 of our finest warriors to learn from humans. Let us hope we are not too late. Day closed his eyes, exhausted. 500 warriors, 6 months. How are we supposed to train them? Commander Yuna appeared in the doorway. She looked at Day and nodded once, the closest thing to approval she ever gave. The same way we train humans. We break them first, then we teach them how to rebuild themselves stronger. Hana looked worried. Some of them will not survive human training methods. Their species are not built for it. Then they will learn that too, Yuna said coldly. The Devourers do not care what species are built for. They only care about breaking their enemies. Our job is to make sure the galaxy's warriors cannot be broken. Day tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in his ribs. Show me the files on the Devourers, all of them. I need to know what we are preparing these warriors to face. Yuna pulled out a datapad and handed it to him. Warning, Day. This footage is classified for a reason. What you are about to see, it will change how you think about this war. Day took the pad and pressed play. The screen showed a coalition battlecruiser, massive and powerful, armed with weapons that could destroy moons. The ship was facing something that looked wrong, like reality itself was sick. Dark shapes that moved in ways that hurt to watch. The Devourers. The battle lasted 4 minutes. The coalition ship fought well, fired every weapon, followed every protocol. It did not matter. The Devourers tore through shields like paper, ripped through armor like cloth. But worse than the physical destruction was what happened to the crew. The footage showed the ship's interior, warriors from 5 different species, all highly trained, all collapsing in terror. Some were crying. Some were screaming. Some just stood still, their minds broken by whatever the Devourers were broadcasting. Then the ship went dark. Day looked up at Yuna, his face pale. They weaponize fear itself. Yes, Yuna said, and that is why the Coalition needs us, because humans learned long ago how to fight when they are terrified. We do not freeze, we attack. The Academy stood on the slopes of Mount Hala in Korea, surrounded by volcanic rock and thin air. 500 alien recruits stepped off the transport ships and stared at the harsh landscape with confusion. They had expected advanced training facilities with climate control and comfortable quarters. Instead, they saw stone buildings, dirt roads, and mountains that disappeared into clouds. Recruit Hyun, a young Quillen with silver fur and cat-like features, shivered in the cold wind. Her species came from a warm planet where the temperature never dropped below comfortable. This place felt like punishment. Beside her stood Recruit Vel, a massive Thernax who looked like a walking tank. His thick gray skin could stop bullets, and his strength was legendary. He seemed unbothered by the cold, but his small eyes showed confusion. Why would they build a training facility in such a terrible location? Maybe they made a mistake, Hyun suggested hopefully. No mistake, a voice barked from behind them. Master Sergeant Tae appeared, a short human with gray hair and a face like carved stone. He wore a simple uniform with no technology visible. This location was chosen because it is terrible. Comfortable warriors die quickly. Uncomfortable warriors learn to survive. The recruits gathered in the main courtyard. Warriors from 19 different species stood together, most of them looking uncomfortable and confused. They were used to training on advanced simulators in climate-controlled facilities. This felt primitive. Commandant Day walked to the front of the group. His ribs had healed from the fight with Krath, but he still moved carefully. Welcome to Earth Combat Academy. For the next 6 months, you will learn how humans train warriors. Some of you will hate it. Some of you will quit. Some of you will wonder why your government sent you here. That is normal. He paused and looked across the assembled aliens. But if you stay, if you finish this training, you will become something the galaxy has never seen. You will become warriors who cannot be broken. Lieutenant Rin walked forward, a human woman with kind eyes but a voice like steel. We will start with the basics, running. The recruits looked at each other. Running was something children did, not elite warriors. 10 miles, Rin continued, through the mountain trail. No technology, no assistance, just your body and your will. Anyone who falls more than 100 meters behind the group will restart tomorrow. Vel laughed, a deep rumbling sound. 10 miles is nothing. I can run 10 miles in my sleep. Then you will have no problems, Rin said with a small smile. They started running. The first 2 miles were easy. The third mile got harder as the trail went upward. By mile 5, several recruits were struggling. By mile 7, Hyun thought she was going to die. Her lungs burned. Her legs felt like they were on fire. Every step was agony. She looked around and saw other recruits stopping, sitting down, giving up. It made sense to stop. Her body was telling her to stop. Continuing was illogical. But then she saw Master Sergeant Tae running beside the group, not even breathing hard. The human was old enough to be her grandfather, and he was running like it was nothing. Keep moving, Tae shouted. Pain is temporary. Quitting is forever. Hyun kept moving. She did not know why. It was stupid. Her body was screaming at her to stop, but she kept moving. Vel finished first, barely tired. Hyun finished second to last, collapsing at the finish line. Out of 500 recruits, only 312 finished the run that day. That night, in the cold barracks with no heating, Hyun heard other recruits crying. Some were packing their bags, preparing to quit. She understood. This was torture. This was unnecessary suffering. But she remembered something her father had told her before she left. The humans survived their planet when they should have gone extinct. There must be a reason. Find it. The days turned into weeks. The training was brutal. They ran in the rain. They ran in the snow. They trained in extreme heat and extreme cold. They learned hand-to-hand combat with no weapons, no armor, just their bodies. They learned to fight when they were tired, when they were hungry, when they were hurt. Instructor Sol taught survival training. He took them into the wilderness with no food, no water, no equipment. You will survive for 3 days, he said simply. Use what nature gives you. Many recruits failed. Their species had evolved past the need for such primitive skills, but those who adapted learned something valuable. They learned that technology could fail, but the body and mind could endure. Lieutenant Rin taught fear conditioning. She put them in situations that triggered their natural panic responses. Darkness for species that feared the dark, heights for species that feared falling, confined spaces for species that needed open air. Your enemy will use your fears against you, Rin explained. "We must teach your mind that fear is just another sensation. It cannot kill you. Only your reaction to it can kill you." Hyun faced her worst fear in the 3rd month. Rin put her in a dark room with recordings of predator sounds, the same predators that had hunted her species for millions of years. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to freeze. But Rin's voice came through a speaker. "Fear is just chemicals in your brain, Hyun. You control your brain. It does not control you." Hyun forced herself to breathe, to think, to move despite the terror. It took 3 hours, but she finally walked out of that room. She was shaking and crying, but she walked out. Vel struggled with different problems. He was strong and tough, but he was slow. Every speed drill, he finished last. Every agility test, he failed. His species was built like tanks, not sprinters. Master Sergeant Tay pulled him aside after a particularly bad training session. "You think you are failing." "I am failing," Vel said, frustrated. "I cannot move as fast as the others." "Speed does not matter if you never stop moving," Tay said. "The rabbit is faster than the wolf. But the wolf catches the rabbit anyway. Do you know why?" Vel shook his massive head. "Because the wolf does not quit. The rabbit runs until it is tired, then stops. The wolf runs until the rabbit is caught. That is what we teach here. Not speed, not strength. Persistence." Something changed in Vel after that. He stopped trying to be fast. He focused on being unstoppable. In the next drill, he finished last again, but he finished. And he kept finishing day after day, never quitting, never stopping. Dr. Ara gave lectures on human military history. She showed them battles where humans were outnumbered and won through sheer refusal to surrender. She showed them disasters where humans survived through adaptation and stubbornness. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on relatively peaceful worlds, Dr. Ara explained. Yes, they had predators. Yes, they had challenges, but nothing like Earth. Humans evolved in constant warfare, against nature, against predators, against each other. We spent 10,000 years learning one lesson. The winner is not the strongest or the smartest. The winner is the one who refuses to lose. The 4th month brought the 72-hour trial. Recruits were given no food, no sleep, and put through continuous combat simulations for 3 straight days. It was designed to break them completely, to find their absolute limit. Hyun hallucinated on the 2nd day. She saw things that were not there, heard voices in her head, but she kept moving. Vel's body was shutting down on the 3rd day. His massive muscles were failing, his reactions slowing. But he kept moving. Out of the 500 who started, only 187 survived the full training program. The others quit, failed, or were medically dismissed. It was the lowest graduation rate in Coalition history. But something had changed in those who remained. They stood differently now. They moved with a confidence that had nothing to do with technology or natural advantages. They had learned the most important human lesson. They learned how to suffer and keep fighting anyway. On graduation day, Commandant Day stood before the assembled warriors. They represented 19 different species, but now they shared something more important than biology. They shared the knowledge that their limits were far beyond what they thought possible. "You came here as elite warriors from your homeworlds," Day said. "You leave here as something else. You are now warriors who understand that battles are not won by those who are strongest, but by those who refuse to quit." Hyun stood at attention, her silver fur marked with scars from training. Beside her, Vel stood like a mountain, steady and unmovable. Around them, warriors who had cursed humanity's training methods now wore their graduation badges with pride. Master Sergeant Tay walked among them, nodding in approval. "Remember," he said, "your technology will fail, your weapons will break, your armor will crack, but you will not break. Because we taught you something more valuable than any weapon. We taught you how to be human," Lieutenant Rin added quietly. The ceremony ended and the graduates prepared to deploy. News had arrived during the final week of training. The Devourers had broken through another defensive line. They were 6 jump points from Earth now, destroying everything in their path. The galaxy's elite forces had failed to stop them. Now it was time to see if human training methods could make a difference. As the recruits boarded ships to their deployment zones, Vel turned to Hyun. "Do you think we are ready?" Hyun looked at her clawed hands, remembering the fear training, the survival exercises, the endless running through mountains. She thought about every moment she wanted to quit but did not. "I think we are ready to find out," she said. The ships launched toward the war, carrying warriors who had learned to fight like humans. The galaxy was about to discover what that meant. Frontier Station Gamma floated in space like a dying star. The Coalition's last defensive position before Earth was scarred with damage from 12 consecutive defeats. Inside the command center, Admiral Chan watched the tactical display with tired eyes. Another fleet was approaching. Another battle they would probably lose. "Admiral, the new deployments have arrived," an officer reported. Chan looked up without much hope. More reinforcements would not help. The problem was not numbers or weapons. The problem was that Coalition warriors kept breaking when they faced the Devourers. Something about the enemy made soldiers collapse in terror, made them surrender without fighting, made them lose their minds before the first shot was fired. The transport ships docked, and 187 graduates from the Earth Combat Academy stepped onto the station. They moved differently than regular Coalition forces. There was something harder in their eyes, something that made even veteran soldiers step aside as they passed. Hyun led her squad down the corridor, her silver fur still marked with scars from training. She could feel the stares from Coalition regulars. They were wondering if the rumors were true, if human training really made a difference. They were about to find out. General Mythos, a bird-like alien who commanded ground forces, stood before the assembled graduates. His feathers were gray with stress, and his voice carried the weight of too many losses. "I will be honest with you. We are losing this war. The enemy does something to us, something we do not understand. Our warriors face them and simply stop fighting. They collapse, they break, they die without raising their weapons." Vel stepped forward, his massive frame making the general look small. "Then they were not trained properly." Mythos's feathers ruffled in anger. "These are elite warriors from the finest programs in the galaxy. They were trained to fight efficiently," Vel interrupted. "We were trained to fight anyway." Before Mythos could respond, alarms screamed throughout the station. Red lights flashed. The tactical display lit up with warnings. "Devourers incoming!" the communications officer shouted. "Massive fleet! Multiple breaches! They are boarding the station!" Chaos erupted. Coalition forces scrambled to defensive positions. But Hyun could see it in their eyes. They were already afraid, already half-beaten before the enemy arrived. "All Academy graduates, listen up!" She activated her comm. "Remember your training. Fear is just chemicals. Pain is just information. We do not stop until we are dead. Do you understand?" "Yes, instructor," came the response from all 187 warriors. They still called her instructor even though training was over. It was a sign of respect, one warrior to another. The Devourers came through the walls like nightmares made real. They were biomechanical horrors that moved wrong, looked wrong, existed wrong. Just seeing them made Hyun's mind scream warnings. Every instinct told her to run, to hide, to give up. Around her, Coalition regulars were already collapsing. Not from weapons, not from injuries. From pure terror. The Devourers broadcast something that broke the mind, turned courage into panic, transformed soldiers into crying children. Hyun felt it too. The fear was real and massive and overwhelming. For a moment, she started to freeze. Then she remembered Lieutenant Rin's voice. Fear is just another sensation. It cannot kill you. Only your reaction to it can kill you. She forced herself to move forward. Her body was screaming at her to run. Her mind was filling with horrible images, but she moved forward anyway. Beside her, Vel charged like a living tank. The fear was trying to stop him too, but he had learned something important in those 6 months on Earth. He learned that stopping was not an option. The Devourers were confused. Their fear tactics always worked. Always. But these warriors were not stopping. They were not collapsing. They were attacking despite the terror, fighting through the nightmare, refusing to break. Hyun's squad hit the enemy like a hammer. They used human tactics, human aggression, human stubbornness. When fear said retreat, they advanced. When pain said stop, they continued. When their minds said surrender, their bodies kept fighting. The battle lasted 6 hours. It was brutal and bloody and horrible. But when it ended, the Devourers withdrew. For the first time in 2 years, coalition forces held a defensive position against them. Admiral Chan stared at the battlefield reports in disbelief. 70% of coalition regulars were casualties, most without fighting. But the Academy graduates had 85% survival rate with minimal losses. How? Chan asked Hyun as medical teams treated her injuries. How did you fight through that? My warriors are trained for decades. They have the best equipment, the best education. But they broke in minutes. You held for hours. Hyun was tired, hurt, and covered in alien blood. But her eyes were clear. Your warriors were trained to avoid suffering. We were trained to use it. The Devourers weaponize fear, but humans taught us that fear is just fuel. The more afraid we are, the harder we fight. Word of the battle spread quickly. Admiral Chan sent the footage to Coalition Command with a simple message. The human training works. Send more Academy graduates immediately. But the real test came 3 weeks later. The Devourers launched a massive assault on 4 systems simultaneously. Coalition forces were spread too thin. The Academy graduates were deployed across all 4 fronts, mixed with regular forces. Vel led a defense on the ice planet of Kronos. The coalition had 2,000 regulars and 50 Academy graduates holding a critical choke point. When the Devourers attacked, the regulars started breaking immediately. Hold the line! Vel's voice boomed across the battlefield. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We are warriors trained by humans, and humans do not quit. His words steadied the regulars around him. They saw this massive alien, this tank-like creature, standing firm when everything said to run. If he could stand, maybe they could too. The battle turned into a nightmare. Devourers kept coming, wave after wave. The fear broadcast never stopped. Many coalition regulars still broke and ran, but those near the Academy graduates held. They fed off the graduates' refusal to quit, their absolute rejection of surrender. Vel held a corridor for 6 straight hours. His armor was destroyed. His body was covered in wounds. He should have been dead. But he kept fighting, kept pushing forward, kept refusing to fall. On the jungle planet Verdus, Hyun led a strike team deep into enemy territory. The mission was suicide according to coalition strategists. The chances of survival were calculated at 3%. Good, Hyun said when she read the mission brief. That means we have a 3% chance of success. Master Sergeant Tae would be proud. Her team infiltrated the Devourer command center through terrain so hostile that regular coalition forces could not follow. They used skills learned from Instructor Soul, surviving on nothing, moving through impossible conditions, adapting to every challenge. The enemy never expected an attack from that direction. Hyun's team destroyed their local command node and escaped before reinforcements arrived. Mission success rate, 100%, despite the 3% survival prediction. Across all 4 battlefronts, the pattern repeated. Academy graduates refused to break. They fought when they should have surrendered. They advanced when they should have retreated. They survived when they should have died. Coalition forces started calling them the Unstoppables, not because they could not be killed, but because they would not stop fighting until they were dead. General Mythos, who had doubted them at first, sent a report to Coalition Command. "I have fought in 40 battles. I have commanded warriors from 12 different species. But I have never seen anything like the Academy graduates. They do not fight better than our elite forces. They fight differently. They fight like survival is the only option, like surrender does not exist in their vocabulary." But the cost was terrible. In the battle for Virtus, Vel's wounds finally caught up to him. He had held a defensive position alone for too long, refused evacuation too many times, fought past the point where his body could continue. Hyun found him collapsed against a wall, surrounded by dead devourers. He was still alive, barely. "Did we win?" he asked, his voice weak. "Yes," Hyun said, taking his massive hand. "We won." Vel smiled. "Good. Tell the others. Tell them it was worth it. I learned something important on Earth. I learned that my life could matter, not because I was strong or tough, but because I refused to quit." His eyes closed. "Thank you for teaching me that." He died there, in a corridor on a planet far from his home. But he died as something more than he had been. He died as a warrior who understood what humans had been trying to teach them all along. The galaxy mourned Vel and the others who fell in those battles, but they also celebrated. For the first time since the war began, coalition forces were winning. The Devourers had retreated from 4 systems. Their supposedly unstoppable advance had been stopped. In his office on Earth, Commandant Day received the casualty reports. Each name was a warrior he had trained, a person he knew. The weight of their deaths sat heavy on his shoulders. Commander Yuna entered without knocking. "The Coalition is sending 50,000 new recruits. They want emergency training. They want us to prepare the entire galaxy to fight like humans." Day looked up. 50,000? In how much time? 6 months, Yuna replied. "The intelligence reports say the Devourers are regrouping for a final assault. Everything they have been holding back, they will throw at us all at once." "Where will they attack?" Yuna's face was grim. "Here. Earth. They are coming for the heart of human resistance." Day stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see new academy buildings being constructed. 50,000 aliens would soon arrive to learn how to fight like humans. And they had 6 months to prepare for a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. He thought about Vel, dying in a corridor but happy because he had finally found purpose. He thought about Hyun and all the graduates fighting across multiple fronts. He thought about every human who had ever refused to quit when quitting made sense. "Then we have work to do," Day said quietly. "If the Devourers want to come to Earth, let them come. We will show them what happens when you attack a planet of warriors who never learned how to surrender." Earth had never seen so many alien ships in orbit. 50,000 warriors from across the galaxy trained in accelerated programs while construction crews built new facilities. Every mountain, every desert, every hostile environment on Earth became a training ground. The planet had 6 months to prepare for the largest battle in galactic history. Commandant Day barely slept. He moved between training sites, watching instructors push recruits to their breaking points and beyond. The methods were brutal because the enemy would be worse. Every graduate needed to understand that survival meant refusing to quit even when quitting made sense. Hyun had returned to Earth as an instructor. She trained new Quillan recruits, showing them that their natural agility meant nothing if they froze in fear. She was harder on them than Master Sergeant Tay had been on her because she knew what was coming. In the strategy room, Ambassador Hana worked with coalition leaders on a plan that terrified everyone. It was called Operation Defiance, and it was insane. Let them come to Earth, the plan stated simply. Draw the entire Devourer fleet here. Fight them on our ground, in our conditions, using our methods. A Vryn admiral protested. This plan accepts 40% casualties as minimum. That is unacceptable. Commander Yuna, who had helped design the operation, responded coldly. We have lost 14 planets and billions of lives. The enemy is not going to negotiate. They are not going to stop. So we make this planet so costly to take that even if they win, they lose. Council Leader Thrix studied the holographic display. His insect eyes showed calculation. You are betting everything on one battle. If we lose here, the war is over. Yes, Day said, but if we retreat, we lose slowly, piece by piece, world by world. This way, we either win or we go down fighting so hard that the enemy remembers us forever. The Council approved the plan. Every coalition ship, every warrior, every weapon would concentrate at Earth. It would be the last stand. Dr. Era gave one final lecture to the assembled alien warriors before deployment. 50,000 faces from 23 different species looked at her. You came here to learn how to win, but that is not what we taught you. We taught you how to lose so badly that the enemy wishes they never started the fight. Humanity has never won by being strongest. We win by being too stubborn to know when we are beaten. The words echoed across the training grounds. Some recruits looked afraid. Some looked determined. All of them understood that this was their only chance. 3 months after training began, the Devourers arrived. Their fleet was massive beyond comprehension. 2 million ships emerged from dark space, blotting out the stars. Every sensor on Earth screamed warnings. Every calculation showed impossible odds. Admiral Chan commanded the space defense from her flagship. 400,000 coalition ships faced 2 million enemy vessels. The math was simple and terrible. All ships, Chan broadcasted. Remember your training. We do not need to destroy them all. We just need to hurt them enough that they never forget the price of attacking Earth. Make every shot count. Make every second matter. And whatever happens, do not surrender. The space battle began with a roar of weapons fire that lit up the solar system. Coalition ships fought with a ferocity they had never shown before. Human tactics had spread through the fleet. Damaged ships rammed enemy vessels. Pilots stayed at their posts past the point of survival. Every warrior fought like stopping was not an option. Admiral Chan watched her fleet being destroyed piece by piece, but they were taking the enemy with them. For every coalition ship lost, 3 Devourer vessels fell. It was not enough to win, but it was enough to hurt. 72 hours into the space battle, Chan's flagship was surrounded. Most of her fleet was gone. The Devourers were preparing to board. She had one option left. All hands abandon ship, she ordered. Then, after her crew escaped, she aimed the massive vessel at the largest Devourer command carrier and activated full thrust. For Earth, she whispered, and rammed her ship into the enemy at a significant fraction of light speed. The explosion could be seen from the planet's surface. The Devourer command carrier shattered. 3 nearby ships were destroyed by debris. It was one ship, but it mattered. It showed the enemy that even in defeat, humans would bite back. The Devourers landed on Earth with 50 million soldiers. They hit every continent simultaneously. Coalition ground forces, led by Academy graduates, met them in the harshest environments the planet offered. Hyun commanded a battalion in the Sahara Desert. The heat was extreme enough to disable most Devourer technology. Her warriors, trained to survive in hostile conditions, turned the environment into a weapon. They led the enemy into sandstorms, into areas where the heat would cook them in their armor, into terrain where technology failed and only raw determination mattered. The Devourers tried their fear tactics, the broadcast of terror that had broken warriors on a dozen worlds. But Hyun's soldiers had spent months in fear conditioning. They felt the horror, the overwhelming urge to flee, the certainty of death. They fought anyway. "Fear is just fuel," Hyun shouted over the battle noise. "Use it! Let it make you angry! Let it make you fight harder!" In the Korean mountains, where the academy stood, Master Sergeant Tae fought his last battle. He was 73 years old and should have been in command centers, not on front lines. But when devourers surrounded the academy, he picked up a weapon and walked outside. A young human soldier tried to stop him. "Sergeant, you cannot—" "Cannot?" Tae interrupted. "I taught 50,000 warriors how to fight. Time to show them I practiced what I preached." He held a mountain pass for 6 hours, alone, using tactics he had taught for decades, using the terrain, using psychology, using sheer refusal to quit. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found him collapsed against a rock, surrounded by enemy dead, still breathing. "Did we hold the academy?" he asked weakly. "Yes, Sergeant," the soldier replied, tears in his eyes. "We held." Tae smiled. "Good. That is all that matters." He closed his eyes for the last time. The battle raged for 8 months. Coalition forces died by the millions. Earth's surface was scarred with craters and fire. Cities burned. Forests were destroyed. The casualty count climbed past every projection. But the devourers were bleeding too. Their fear tactics did not work on warriors trained by humans. Their superior numbers meant nothing when every coalition soldier refused to surrender. Their advanced technology failed in Earth's hostile environments where human-trained warriors thrived. Commandant Day confronted the enemy leader personally in the ruins of what had been Seoul. The Voice, as it called itself, was a massive biomechanical horror that broadcast terror with every word. "Why do you not break?" the Voice demanded. "Your species should have collapsed months ago. You have lost billions. Your planet is dying, yet you still fight. Why?" Day, wounded and exhausted but still standing, looked up at the creature. "Because you made a mistake. You evolved to conquer through fear. You learned that terror breaks the will to fight. But you never met humans. We looked at an uncaring universe that tried to kill us every day and said, 'Watch this.' We turned fear into fuel. You taught the galaxy to be afraid. We taught them to be dangerous." The Voice tried to break Day's mind with its full power. The terror broadcast hit him like a physical blow. He saw visions of every horrible thing that could happen. His mind screamed at him to surrender, to die, to give up. But Day had spent his entire life learning to fight through fear. He had trained in conditions that should have killed him. He had faced Krath when facing Krath was suicide. He had learned the most important human lesson. He refused to quit. The Voice, for the first time in its existence, felt something it had never felt before. It felt fear. This small creature, this weak human, was still standing, still fighting, still refusing to break. "What are you?" the Voice whispered. "I am what happens when you attack a species that learned to survive the impossible," Day said. "I am human, and we do not surrender." In that moment, across all battlefronts, something changed. The Devourers realized they could not win this war. They could destroy Earth, kill every coalition soldier, burn every city, but they could not break the will to fight. And a war without end was a war they would eventually lose. The Devourers withdrew. It was not a retreat. It was a recognition that humans had taught the galaxy something more powerful than any weapon. They had taught them that will matters more than strength, that courage matters more than technology, that refusing to quit matters more than winning easily. The war ended not with a treaty, but with the enemy simply leaving. The Voice was captured and put on trial for genocide. The Devourer civilization collapsed from within, broken by the psychological impossibility of defeating an enemy that would not surrender. 10 years later, Earth had healed. The scars remained, but life returned. The Academy still stood on Mount Hala, now the most respected institution in the galaxy. Every species sent their warriors to train under human methods. Hyun was commandant now. She stood before a new class of recruits and saw the same confusion she once felt. They did not understand why training had to hurt. They did not understand why humans made them suffer. They would learn. A young Vryn recruit, grandson of Krath, raised his hand. "Commandant, I have a question. Why do humans make the best warriors? We Vryn are stronger. The Quillen are faster. The Thurnax are tougher. What do humans have that makes them superior?" Hyun smiled the same way Master Sergeant Tay used to smile. "We are not trying to be superior warriors. We are just really stubborn about staying alive. The galaxy learned war from us, but they still do not fully understand. Humans are not warlike. We just refuse to die quietly." She walked to the window and pointed at the memorial outside. It listed every warrior who died defending Earth. Vel's name was there, Admiral Chan's name, Master Sergeant Tay's name, thousands of others. Those warriors learned something important here. They learned that their lives could matter, that their deaths could mean something, that refusing to quit, even when quitting makes sense, is the most powerful weapon in existence. The young Vryn looked at the memorial, then back at Hyun. "Will we learn that too?" "If you survive training," Hyun said, "now drop and give me 100 push-ups. All of you. Your bodies need to learn that limits are just suggestions." The recruits groaned but obeyed. Outside, Earth continued turning. The planet that should have died but refused to quit. The world that taught the galaxy the most important lesson. Surrender is not in the vocabulary of those who survive. The Academy's motto was engraved above the entrance in 23 languages. Every warrior who graduated would carry those words forever. Every species in the galaxy now understood what they meant. They asked why we fight. We said, because surrender is not in our vocabulary. Hyun watched the new recruits struggle through basic exercises and smiled. They would complain. They would hurt. They would question why humans trained this way. And then, when it mattered most, they would understand. They would face impossible odds and refuse to quit. They would feel overwhelming fear and fight anyway. They would learn that being human is not about biology. It is about never knowing when you are beaten. The sun set over Mount Hala, casting long shadows across the training grounds. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tomorrow, another generation of warriors would learn what it meant to fight like humans. Tomorrow, the galaxy would remain safe because Earth taught them the most valuable lesson. Victory belongs to those who refuse to lose.